All praises are Allah's, Lord of the worlds, and may His peace and blessings be upon our Master, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and His pure Immaculate Ahlul Bayt. There was a theme we discussed in the Farsi language a few nights ago, and I think it's important to discuss in English now because it will be important in relation to future sessions. So it's good to have this basis before yourselves so you can recall it when we discuss deeper concepts, inshallah. And that is the concept of shirk. What do we mean by shirk? Because that shirk that we're usually preoccupied with is the shirk that the Farrokh speak of, the shirk of the Sharia. And it's important to know about it. But since we're always preoccupied with the Sharia and think there's nothing deeper, we become oblivious to other forms of shirk. Not that these other forms don't exist in the Quran, they exist in the Quran, sometimes explicitly. But since we sometimes limit Islam to the Sharia aspect alone, we become neglectful of those other aspects. So I just want to go through this definition of shirk. There are two types of shirk. One is the open type, the other is the concealed type. The open type, or shirk jali, jali meaning open or apparent. The open type of shirk is that of the Sharia, where someone says X is God, Y is God. You attribute deity to a being or entity. And that is haram according to the Sharia. And since most of us only focus on the Sharia, we think that's the only shirk that exists. Whereas there's another form of shirk, and that is concealed shirk. And the definition of concealed shirk isn't attributed to Allah Himself, rather it's attributed to the ibadah, the worshipping, and I'm using worshipping in a broad sense, the submitting to Allah, which is compromised. When submission to Allah, worship to Allah is compromised, you are now in the domain of concealed shirk. Wherever the worshipping of Allah, the submitting to Allah is compromised, i.e., Allah is used as a means, not as an end. When someone uses Allah as a means to something, they have entered the phase of concealed shirk. They are a mushrik of the concealed type. Now, this concealed shirk is further divided into two forms: an external concealed shirk and an internal concealed shirk. In the external concealed shirk, it only has one mistaq, one application, and that is riya, ostentation. When only in your ibadat, such as prayer, fasting, hajj, and so on and so forth, you do these ibadat so that other people see you. It's confined to the ibadat here. When the ibadat are done so that others can see you, that is the external form of concealed shirk. And that is haram according to the Sharia. However, the other forms of concealed shirk are not haram from a Sharia point of view, but they are haram from an ethical and tariqah point of view. And that is the internal concealed shirk, which there's no end there. Where in all your actions, not limited to the ibadat, but even the non-ibadat, brushing your teeth in the morning, combing your hair, having the shower, driving to school, to the workplace, speaking with people, eating, and so on and so forth. Here, do you do them Allah fully or Allah lessly? And these weren't ibadat. And when you do them Allah lessly, your submission to Allah is being compromised. It fits in the definition of shirk khafi, concealed shirk. Yes, during salat, let's say 10 minutes a day, you recall Allah. You do the salat Allah fully. But during those 23 hours and 50 minutes, here, when there's no Allah, you're living and drowning in shirk. Or even more delicate is even in your ibadat. This is shirk khafina, concealed, where Allah is used as a means, not as an end. You may do your ibadat, your praying and your fasting, but you do them to go to heaven. You do them so that your livelihood be increased, your sustenance be increased. You see, Allah is used as a means. You're not doing these things for Allah's sake alone. And therefore you're a mushrik of the concealed internal type. It's not haram according to the Sharia, but there's no spiritual growth. It's like a man and a woman, for example. The man sometimes does something good to the woman, so that she cooks something at night, for example. He's not doing this good deed to the woman for the sake of the woman. The affinity isn't that strong towards the woman, that he does X good deed merely for the sake, solely for the sake of the woman for who she is. That kind of love, when you do it solely for who she is much more when you do a good deed so that you get something in return. Like cuisine. There, with the cuisine example, you're using her as a means to cuisine. Whereas in the first example, you use her as an end. You see her as an end in herself. The two degrees of love differ there. The same with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes you give sadaqah only for Allah's sake, because of Allah, period. Sometimes you give sadaqah to acquire relief from burdens. Both are acceptable. None of them are bad. But the thing is, the degree of love differs. One, you're using Allah as a means to something. One, Allah is the end, the objective, period. Now, when you analyze your lives, you see, you read the Quran, you read ziyarat, you do salatul layl, you give charity, you're good with your parents, and so on and so forth. Then you see, all these things, you're using Allah as a means, or most of them. So I just want to highlight the intensity of the matter. That's also shirk. Yes, it's not haram. Yes, it's of the concealed type. But do you want to grow or not? Or do you want to remain static with the minimum? And in Irfan, in the language of Irfan, whatever is an impediment to making you, or whatever is the cause to making you treat Allah as a means rather than an end, they call that an idol. This kind of idol worshipping existed too. And the Quran says, chapter 1206, مَا يُؤْمِنُ وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. Most people who have Iman in Allah, they are mushrik. They have Iman in Allah, so they can't be mushrik of the open time, because that's in contradiction with having Iman in Allah. Because shirk of the open type is saying X is Allah, attributing deity to other than Allah. So this verse can't be referring to the mushrikun of the open type, because these people are believers. Most believers are mushrik. Shirk of the concealed type. And then we have the verse إِنَّمَا الْمُشْرِكُونَ نَجَسٌ. Now things get more serious. The mushrikun are najis. All our lives we thought the physical, dhahiri mushriks are najis. So if with their wet hand, if we make contact, we have to wash our hands. Well, that doesn't mean they have less dignity than you. The fact that you be attributed najasa, it doesn't mean creation-wise they are worse than you. We're all equal creation-wise. So why do we say these people who are mushrik, they don't believe in Allah or they associate idols with Allah? Why do we call them, or they associate deity, they attribute deity to other than Allah also? Why do we call them mushrik? Why do we call them najis? The reason is because there's a unity between the body and the soul. We may interpret these two as two mutually exclusive things, but in reality it's one reality. But the soul is the inner aspect and the body is the outer aspect, but they're in unity with one another. The body is a physical manifestation of the soul. The soul is an inner manifestation of the body. If the soul has false doctrine incorporated within it, because of this unity between body and soul, when the soul becomes corrupt with that doctrine, the body also becomes corrupt as a result of the soul's becoming corrupt, and so the physical hand becomes najis. And that's why we have it. What about if someone is a mushrik, not of the open type, of the concealed type? The answer there too, the soul becomes contaminated. And as a result, the body becomes contaminated. But the majority of the fuqaha say they're not najis from a Sharia point of view. It hasn't reached that extent, so don't worry there. But the aspect of this unity between body and soul is an important one. Why can't man and woman who aren't related, they're not mahram with one another? For example, a man can't shake a hand of a non-mahram woman. That flesh to flesh, skin to skin contact, it's not allowed in Islam. Why? Because if the body wasn't in unity with the soul, if they were two separate entities, then there would be no problem with shaking the hand. Like two pieces of wood touching. The problem is the unity of body and soul. When you're shaking and doing that action, the soul is being contaminated chastity-wise, whether you're male or female. That unity, that physical hand is touching, but that physical hand is a manifestation of the soul. It's not mutually exclusive to the soul. And the philosophy of hijab also lies in this. Okay, I think I've covered what I wanted to in relation to shirk, and with that background, inshallah, we can continue and speak on more issues in the following days.